SI Agent and just all face damage. But yeah, I kind of like this creature-based Miracle Rogue. I really like him keeping the 4-drop. One of the weaknesses of Miracle Rogue is usually don't have any 4-drop or very few 4-drops. So just keeping that card allows him to hit that drop on curve a little bit. You can probably mulligan into 2, 3, 5 drops or the other mana stuff. So I do like that play.
Okay.
Well, he picks up a Blade Flurry already as well, and we saw an Assassin's Blade in his hand that he mulliganed away. Maybe he'll be looking to pick something like that up later on in the game. He doesn't have a great option for turn 1. He may just end up coining an SI next turn.
Yeah, I like coining SI. I mean, if you just coin the dagger out, you're probably not doing anything on turn 2.
That's a rough draw. You already have a bow. You would love to pick up another thing to do, like Haunted Creeper, or even another 1-drop like a Whip Spin would have been optimal, but now he has nothing to do, and Rogue all of a sudden seizes control of the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see whether he's going to save his coin for potential stronger play late game. He is a Miracle Rogue, so coin is always going to be good late game, or, develop the SI Agent. This way, he still has a coin, but doesn't get to play the agent. I don't know how well it's going to work for him. The SI agent would have been really good, against whatever minion comes out here. So
much damage already, and he's got both of those bows. Those are they're like a fireball. They're 6 damage to the face, even without anything else, like a trap to get an extra charge. So much damage potential from the Hunter. Now's the chance for the Rogue to really try and start turning it around.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see just how much damage the Hunter's already gotten.
12 damage in 3 turns?
Yeah, that's pretty...
Seems pretty fair.
That's a lot of damage.
Well, now the Rogue can start turning the tides, as it's pretty weak options for D2 here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is going to come down to whether Hunter can actually, get all the damage in from the Eagle Horns, because at this point he has lost control against Miracle, and Cold Blood can develop a lot of damage, and Cold Blood does mean that you cannot ignore those minions anymore. You pretty much can't ignore any cold-blooded minion. So I feel like if Hunter can actually just, get all the damage in from the bow and survive long enough, he can win. But otherwise, I think the Rogue will, that'll be like one of his ways of victory. So
what do you think? You think start pushing for the Eagle Horn bow? Oh wow, he's going to play the control game. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea, because if you start leaving minions this turn, there's still too much time. Like you might get in 3 damage a turn from the bow with with 4 charges with 2 bows, but creatures are ultimately kind of like weapons too. Like they develop damage in the long run.
They're repetitive damage.
Exactly. They don't even lose resources. So.
It's a tough choice here. It is a bit of a race, like you said. If he plays the Fan of Knives, it's the most efficient thing to do to kill the Leper Gnome this turn. But he could use his 1/1. He could even use his face, which would be really scary at this point, and get an SI7 agent out there. He won't be able to combo it, but he will be able to get it out there, and it could help in a race. He needs to get something in play.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the face here. Yeah, I wouldn't actually mind if he trades the 1/1, just develops the SI agent even. But he decides to fan. I mean,
he gets a second Blade Flurry. Blade Flurry number 2.
Oh, that could be kind of awkward. It's hard to use 2 Blade Flurries here without a weapon. There's a Sludge Belcher on the Hunter. That's going to be one of the ways, a really good card for him, because Hunter is always getting chipping in damage here and there with the hero power and bows. So being able to survive as long as possible is really important. Oh wow!
He gets a sap, but he doesn't have anything like a prep this turn. So he still needs to find a good way to break through this Sludge Belcher, and hopefully the Sludge Belcher won't actually do any damage to him. If he saps, he gets to play an SI7, but the Sludge Belcher is just going to come back, and he's going to have to deal with it again later.
But then he does have cards like Eviscerate to help chew through it later. And it is going to take the mana of the next turn for Hunter without squeezing in hero power. So if you can use that sap to gain some tempo and position on the board, maybe that gives Rogue a fighting chance, because like you said, not that much health left, 16 remaining, and there is a second bow ready to go. Maybe
sap is exactly what he needs in this case. Maybe just buying that time is going to be enough and find a way to turn the game back around. He does have a long climb. 26 is a lot more than 16 in terms of how much damage he has left to deal.
Yeah, I don't think Chakki wants to take this 3 damage from a Sludge Belcher, even though he's not actually developing much damage. If he saps, it's just I don't think he wants to take the 3 damage. And also tempo is so important here. I mean, it's unlikely that he's actually going to be able to play out his hand.
Okay, so he's actually going to decide to Eviscerate. And this will stop him from taking the 3 damage, but he will take at least the 1 from the sludge.
I think one of the reasons why he made this play is because he's kind of anticipating a Savannah High main and on 6, which is this turn. So if Savannah High main came out and there was no sap, that'd be even more of a problem for him than the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah,
so.
excellent point. That's the best way to deal with Savannah High main, because oftentimes Hunter doesn't get a chance to replay it without having an incredible board presence already. D2 starting to go more aggressive with this Eagle Horn bow. And then he starts squeezing in hero power as well. Makes total sense. And now Rogue's on 10 health. Starting to get really dicey here for Chakki.
10 health is not much with that bow in hand. Just bow plus hero power 2 turns in a row is enough damage to kill him. He either has to turn the game around really quickly or find something like an Earthen Ring Farseer to try and survive an extra turn.
Yeah, the 2 saps are good cards. It means that Chakki is unlikely to take too much more damage from minions, but unfortunately for him, there is still a hero power and bow, so just those here is 5 damage a turn. He's unlikely to survive more than 2 turns, so it all depends whether he can either develop a taunter or heal or get a kill in 2 turns. And he also has to deal with all these minions anyways, so it's not looking good for Chakki.
All right, well, getting to use Blade Flurry immediately, pushing out SI7 agent. This is still, you don't know what trap is developed. If
Oh,
it's
he
snake
actually kind of messed up, I think. Yeah, the secret procs this way.
Oh no, and then he leaves 1 minion on the board.
Yeah, he should have attacked first before killing the Mad Scientist.
Hunter Rhino, by the way, allows him to go for like a 2 damage charger from his hand.
That's actually really relevant at this point.
Because now he gets the guaranteed 2 damage from hand, because he will have the mana to do that and hero power. And next turn, it looks like D2 is setting up a kill on Chakki unless he draws something big here.
Yeah, if Murkrug does not have taunters at this point or healing, you just won't win. I mean, as like I said, Leroy is nerfed now, so that card might not even be as effective or might not be in the deck. So.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Chakki concedes. Game 1 goes to D2 as DKMR filled with strong players, and another one is showcasing his skill right here. Chakki drops the Rogue to the aggressive Hunter deck. What's so funny, Reels?
There's a pesky fly. We're having our own sub-battle as the play.
To be on the Zoo player, but I don't see it. I believe the Hunter player is the one that's on the coin, which is nice if he gets the start. But at the same time, the person who goes first gets the edge on the Undertaker battles if it gets to that point where you're both starting off very strong.
Yeah, that's true. And Hunter is a very, very good hand. Undertaker and Mad Scientist. I think these are the most important cards. I think Mad Scientist is much more important than any other 2-drop here because so many other traps are make such a big impact in the early game here.
So now you see your opponent has a turn 1 Undertaker, you're likely to do something else instead. Do you feel like coining out the Mad Scientist is a better option, or do you feel like you pass?
This is something where I had to think a lot. Like so, I don't know.
This is a rope turn, right?
Yeah,
for most
this
people.
is like a rope thing.
Well, Chakki, he just gets his Undertaker going right away, and now it's on the Hunter player to go ahead and start fighting back. Some of the cards that he does have do really well in 2-for-1 situations. The bow itself, he's going to get rid of that Undertaker before it grows any further. Very clean play, very nice. And he has now 2 Mad Scientists as well that also are really good at being sort of this 2-for-1 type of card.
Yeah, it is unfortunate for D2 that he couldn't develop his Mad Scientists and Undertakers very early. They kind of do lose effectiveness as the game drags on. But he does have this bow, and it will be able to kill another minion next turn probably if there's a good target. So.
Wow. Look at the damage inside of Chakki's hand. He's got Power Whelming, Soulfire, 8 damage along with Doomguard. Fortunately, he's going to have to make some tough choices as the road goes on because he can't keep all of them.
Yeah, definitely with the Soulfire, it's going to be interesting to see if he goes for it even right now. This turn would be a good turn for it.
Yeah,
everything in his hand does so much damage.
That's a crazy hand. I mean, it's not good for him because you generally want to burn at the end of the game and you want to develop presence in the beginning of the game. So he's drawing all his cards in the wrong order. This might look scary, but this is definitely not the cards you want from the start.
He may have to make a choice of using something like a Soulfire on the Undertaker even this turn and just be okay with whatever happens to get discarded. He probably doesn't want it to be the Doomguard, even though he doesn't want to play the Doomguard next turn yet. Yeah. But he has to start doing something here.
Yeah, I think he might decide to pop his Haunted Creeper here, especially if you're not playing around Unleash a lot, and you probably don't want to when your hand is like this. I think you want to get the more immediate power, which is the 2 Death Rattle minions, instead of like kind of like the stickiness of the Haunted Creeper.
Sure.
So I could see him maybe tapping and Abusive Sarging and taking out the, the
Mad Scientist.
no, the other one, the Undertaker.
Oh, the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's what he's choosing to do. And he's keeping Soulfire and letting it simmer in his hand while he develops more options and more damage.
Captain Greenskin.
Captain Greenskin! What is going on?
I don't know.
You know what? When you get the Captain's Parrot off of Web Spinner, he finally has use.
He found the secret. The secret strategy.
That is preparing for randomness the way Blizzard wanted it, right?
Well, Chakki invited D2 into a race. D2 has accepted the race, and now we're going to have to see just exactly what happens. Defender of Argus, really a good card when someone does offer a race like that, but the Mad Scientist with the traps could certainly break up a lot of what Chakki's trying to do.
One of them is Explosive Trap.
I'm extremely surprised that D2 did not trade his Mad Scientist, because the Mad Scientist Death Rattle is an extremely important thing to get immediately, and he has 2 Mad Scientists. He would have, probably traded for one of the 2/1s, or at least start taking out some of the 1/1s with this Mad Scientist so he can get the value from the secrets.
He's got 11 damage on board, and then the Doom Guard can have Power Overwhelming and Soulfire potentially activated, so that's
There's
13
definitely a
damage from
potential
hand.
lethal here. There's definitely a potential lethal. In fact, you can actually squeeze in 6 damage from the Power Overwhelming, because the Power Overwhelming the Leper Gnome, it'll do 4 in 1 turn.
And he doesn't have to risk playing the Doom Guard. He'll have 6 mana, so you can just go Power, Defender of Argus, and then Soulfire.
Gosh, that's still 14 damage right there. A boost from your hand.
It is a huge amount of damage. If any of his minions survive, it could be threatening lethal immediately.
That's assuming his opponent doesn't drop something like Loatheb to deny the ability to go for those big damage combos.
It would deny it, but the Hunter would still be extremely low to do it. It would mean leaving his opponent's Loatheb alive, and because he didn't attack one of the 1/1s the previous turn with his Mad Scientist, now he's in a position where if he does trade for the 2 power guys with his Mad Scientists, he can just use the Spectral Creepers to trigger the Freezing Trap.
Well, see what trap he has to start things off. It is Freezing Trap. Uh-oh.
And we'll have to see, because this is a desperate turn for him, and some decks only run 2 Freezing Traps. So, if he only has 2 Freezing Traps, this second Mad Scientist will not get anything. And we'll see now.
I think it's likely, because of that circumstance happening, most players play at least 1 other trap, a 3rd trap. He probably has a snake ready to go.
Oh,
and
that is preparing for randomness the way Blizzard wanted it, right?
Well, Chakki invited D2 into a race. D2 has accepted the race, and now we're going to have to see just exactly what happens. Defender of Argus, really a good card when someone does offer a race like that, but the Mad Scientist with the traps could certainly break up a lot of what Chakki's trying to do.
One of them is Explosive Trap.
I'm extremely surprised that D2 did not trade his Mad Scientist, because the Mad Scientist Death Rattle is an extremely important thing to get immediately, and he has 2 Mad Scientists out. I would have thought that he would have, probably traded for one of the 2/1s, or at least start taking out some of the 1/1s with this Mad Scientist so he can get the value from the secrets.
He's got 11 damage on board, and then the Doom Guard can have Power Overwhelming and Soulfire potentially activated, so that's
There's
13
definitely a
damage
potential
from hand.
lethal here. There's definitely a potential lethal. In fact, you can actually squeeze in 6 damage from the Power Overwhelming, because the Power Overwhelming the Leper Gnome, it'll do 4 in 1 turn.
And he doesn't have to risk playing the Doom Guard. He'll have 6 mana, so you can just go Power, Defender of Argus, and then Soulfire.
Gosh, that's still 14 damage right there. A boost from your hand.
It is a huge amount of damage. If any of his minions survive, it could be threatening lethal immediately.
That's assuming his opponent doesn't drop something like Loatheb to deny the ability to go for those big damage combos.
It would deny it, but the Hunter would still be extremely low to do it. It would mean leaving his opponent's Loatheb alive, and because he didn't attack one of the 1/1s the previous turn with his Mad Scientist, now he's in a position where if he does trade for the 2 power guys with his Mad Scientists, he can just use the Spectral Creepers to trigger the Freezing Trap.
Well, see what trap he has to start things off. It is Freezing Trap. Uh-oh.
And we'll have to see because this is a desperate turn for him, and some decks only run 2 freezing traps. So, if he only has 2 freezing traps, this second Mad Scientist will not get anything. And we'll see now.
I think it's likely because of that circumstance happening, most players play at least one other trap, a third trap. He probably has a snake ready to go.
Oh
and
my
So
goodness.
there's another one.
What?
He didn't even master over the other trap, so he definitely knows what it is.
So as soon as the freezing trap triggers, as long as it's not explosive as well, if it is freezing, but he can power overwhelming first and attack with a small thing.
That's right.
So he can power overwhelming something like the Leper Gnome and a Spectral Spider. He'll probably power overwhelming 2 minions and attack with just the 1/1.
Sounds good to me, and then Chakki would have the damage necessary to end the game, but that's assuming it's not something really funky. I mean, what if the misdirection activates and then like hits another minion that has a big power overwhelming, and all of a sudden your damage has been neutered?
Yeah,
Now both
this
the
is a
powers
rare
are out,
play.
and he's going to check with the 1/1 for
Wow.
both explosive and freezing, and everything will be out of range of
Okay.
explosive, even if it's there. There's the freezing, and he will
What's the
probably
second
assume it's a
trap?
snake.
Is it an explosive trap as well?
It is an explosive, and he played around it perfectly.
Perfect.
Well done, and Chakki will take this game with a lot of damage to spare, and we have ourselves an even series.
Well done. It was not the best draw ever from the Hunter player, but he still had a lot of damage potential. Came down to sort of that last bit. That one Spectral Spider did end up mattering, so a little bit of a falter for the Hunter player. He could have navigated a little bit better. He was invited into a race, he took the bait, and Chakki ended up winning the game.
Yeah, so a really good trap set by Chakki, and he was the zoo player. He was the one playing traps.
Too true.
All right, so then
But Zombie Chow is like one of the weird cards because this is like a card I've experimented a lot with. It's like so good. Any like pretty much any deck, as long as you can draw it turn 1, it's really strong. But as you draw it later and later in the game, it can cost a lot with the Death Rattle. And these Shaman, just seeing Zombie Chow in the Shaman deck, I kind of predict that it's a very grindy Shaman list. Like it's not really going for as much burst. I think it's really tuned to fight aggro, and maybe against some of the control lists, it's probably more tuned to grind out the lists with, say, something like Manatide Totem, or just a fairly like a lot of like sticky minions like Loot Hoarder that can draw a lot of cards, and
Sure. You don't think it's the Death Rattle variant that we've seen some people experiment with? They try to get good Undertaker start with Shaman and then have a bunch of Death Rattles?
I mean, I feel like there's very likely Undertaker in this Shaman as well. Yeah.
Okay, well. Oh, okay.
Bloodlust, too.
Well, that does stick more to the lines of what you were talking about. You have minions that have strong board presence. Bloodlust is a finisher because you have all these tokens remaining from things that die. Of course, you do have the totems, of course.
And this turn 1 Zombie Chow, this actually is a very, very scary moment because now he's going to have to give up his Undertaker. He did not draw a Death Rattle.
Yikes.
If he had gotten something like a Haunted Creeper, he would have been able to at least hopefully have his Undertaker survive an extra turn. As it sits now, that Zombie Chow is threatening to kill the Undertaker. He either has to play just Abusive Sergeant this turn as his only play and trade, or else he has to play something like an Echoing Ooze and just let his Undertaker go.
Yeah, this is a hard decision to make. By playing the Echoing Ooze here, it's very likely that this Zombie Chow will take out 2 minions before dying. That's that's a lot of value for a 1-drop. So.
Or more. Depends on how his opponent responds.
Okay, so the Feral Spirits kind of protects. It's really good here. If you look at this, how this board is lining up, like just looking at the board state, it's very bad for Chakki as the Warlock because these Echoing Oozes just line up so poorly against the Feral Spirits. Like they just lose so badly in the combat. And there's even another 2/2 to take one out. So. I think he really needs to leverage these Echoing Oozes somehow. He doesn't really have a lot of ways to do it. I guess he does, but none of them are that efficient. The Direwolf allows these Echoing Oozes to turn into 2/2s, which still don't do that well against the Feral Spirits. But Abusive Sergeant will definitely come down here, I think, to get to kill at least one of them fairly with a fairly good trade.
But then how much is he going to be able to establish a board, and then cards like Defender of Argus are just stranded in your hand? And this is like exactly what Shaman wants, to give the early game of the Zoo player so they can't have any board compounding at their advantage. And you're just stuck like playing catch-up while they're developing later into the game much better than you are because their minions are more powerful.
Yeah, the worst scenario for Zoo is when you're stuck with all these situational cards. Not really situational, but cards that buff other minions, like Dark Iron and Argus, and then you don't actually have anything to buff. Like your board is clear, and that's usually when Zoo loses and loses very badly. So
yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that.
It does leave him 1 mana here. I like that Chakki decided to go ahead and attack his Echoing Ooze into the Spirit Wolf. It's not a good situation no matter what, but if he hadn't done it, his opponent would have been able to kill 2 minions and keep both of his alive. As it is now, all of the minions in play are threatening to trade with each other. This does prompt him to use the Rockbiter weapon to take out the wolf, but now he does still have to give up a minion. Now he's just got a 2/1. But he did draw a second Feral Spirit, so there's possibly hope on the horizon for Chakki, but as it sits right now, it's still not the type of position you want to be in.
Do you value that 1 extra health in the zombie chow, or do you feel like it's because he just wants to get the effect out of the way, or he wants to keep the taunt minion? Because he did have a choice there of keeping a 2/2 or a 2/1.
That's
true.
interesting. I actually would definitely prefer keeping the 2/2. I mean, you'd never want to get the death out of the way if it's healing 5, because it'll, it doesn't really make sense.
Well, I mean,
but,
that's not what you're concerned about,
yeah,
right? You're not
exactly.
racing.
I definitely feel like the taunt is not as important as extra health in this situation. With you're so healthy at this point, and you just want more efficient trades ultimately. So yeah, you can see that it definitely didn't pay off in this situation. You could have taken out Echoing Ooze for free, and it probably could have taken out another minion after. So.
Oh, he's got more 2/3s coming up with Feral Spirit. It does overload him, though, for the Sludge Belcher, something to consider if he wants to instead play Loot Hoarder and then do something else.
I definitely feel like this Earthshock's coming out. I mean, it's a good target to line up. It seems like probably he'll end up Feral Spiriting and Earthshocking just because it lines up, again, so well against the Echoing Oozes, but I don't think he really needs to rush for a Sludge Belcher. Even if his next turn is just a Loot Hoarder, it should be okay. I mean, Sludge Belcher, these taunters you generally want to play in the very dire situations. Like if you have a non-taunted minion and a taunted minion, they're around the same strength. In these situations, you definitely want to play the non-taunted minions first against Zoo, because then you'll give that minion some time to trade off and play the taunted minion before you die, like as a last resort. So
pretty good draw. He allows you to trade up for the Feral Spirits. Again, just going back to your point, making sure that you can match the power levels, but this is where hopefully the Shaman can start pulling a little bit farther ahead. Flame Tongue Totem, talk about buffs to trade.
Okay, I mean that was a kind of a really aggressive move. I mean, that's definitely something I think you have to think about a lot, because your Flame Tongue is kind of stranded here.
Wow.
I guess it kind of makes sense because there's a Sludge Belcher next turn, so you can kind of protect your Flame Tongue with their taunted minion.
These turns are so awkward, by the way. I could make a mockumentary and sell it to ABC based off these turns.
Yeah, both players are really focusing on not letting the other player do what he wants. So you see really weird things like, one Flame Tongue on the board, and
so far
this
defender combination.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Sludge Belcher is going to come down here, and it's still got that Flame Tongue behind it. Flame Tongue not that important right now, but Chakki still doesn't have any great play either. Okay. And that Soulfire doesn't quite kill the front end of that Sludge Belcher.
I think he has to get lucky with the
one out of three. All right, well, if the Juggle hits the Sludge Belcher, it actually will be a really big deal. Yeah, he'll finally have a significant board presence. If he doesn't hit it, he'll have to trade in and leave the Sludge, and he hits it.
He's still going to lose the Leper Gnome.
He is because of the Totem, which is unfortunate, but he still has kind of a board versus not much of a board.
And also, this is a Stranded Flame Tongue Totem. It always sucks to have a Stranded Flame Tongue Totem. It always puts a lot of pressure on the Shaman.
Unless he gets perhaps the Taunt Totem and gets a little bit more value off of it.
That'd be by far the best totem he could get. He might not decide to actually totem at all, just because he probably wants to play all of these 2-drops.
Sure.
I mean, you're kind of taking a risk. Like 1/4 of the time, you'll probably get a good totem, but these are slow Death Rattle minions in his hand, so he probably wants to cycle them, or play this. He needs to play them early for them to get a lot of value in this game. So,
was there any merit whatsoever? I like that Chakki's going for more of a board flood, but was there any merit of using Bloodlust immediately to try to take out the Knife Choker and win back some of the board?
I don't think so. Like, I don't know.
Well, because the argument is if they're able to seize back the board, you don't actually have a practical application of it and sitting in your hand.
That's true, but you are flooding the board this turn, so you can potentially Bloodlust a lot more minions now.
Assuming the Knife Juggler just doesn't go off, there's a lot of things going on.
But I mean, there are a lot of very sticky minions here, you know, especially the 2 Death Rattles on the left and the right.
You have the opportunity to potentially protect your Knife Juggler this turn. Is that something that you think is worth it? You would have to kill the Loot Hoarder with your Defender of Argus.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely kill a Loot Hoarder here. Like, it just doesn't really make sense to do anything else.
You'd have to play your second Defender of Argus too, but I guess he doesn't want to do that.
I mean, even if he does this, wouldn't he kill the Loot Hoarder anyways?
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, D2 is so mad about that one.
That was a very big ping.
Wow.
I think he's going to go face, though. I don't know. Just attacking here just seems like you let your opponent's minion attack twice effectively, because it's attacking your Argus, and then it'll come back as the same power. I feel like it's a little bit weird to attack into any of these minions. Yeah,
and he ends up deciding he agrees with you. He had the opportunity to take out the front end of the Harvest Golem, and a Hex actually comes off the top. He has two good ways he can deal with this here. The Bloodlust is actually very useful in this circumstance, just to be used as removal if he wants to. He also has the opportunity to Hex. He's going to Hex outright, and he's just going to wait. He's not going to use the Bloodlust. He's going to let that Dark Iron Dwarf survive a turn.
Taunt Totem, not bad, protecting some of his other assets.
This can be a scary situation for the Shaman, because normally you would think that a deck with the higher mana curve usually wins the late game, but you know, this is a situation where Warlock can actually take over the game with life tap.
Right.
You know, because Shaman again he's out of cards. He doesn't actually have that much draw. So depending on the next cards he immediately draws, he could just kind of fizzle out in the next turn or two. So
how do you sequence this? Are you trying to get a snipe with a Knife Juggler again and devastate your opponent?
I mean, I'd probably just play, unless you can get a really good trade with the Argus, I'd probably just play the 2-drop and the 5-drop Knife Juggler and Lothab.
Right, but are you trying to snipe a specific creature here, or like you attacked Harvest Golem beforehand?
And he could attack the Harvest Golem with the Dark Iron Dwarf here.
Yep,
he could do it and then play the Knife Juggler and Defender of Argus. It is an option that he has. He may just play the Defender of Argus anyway and just go for the face for 5, which now that he's done it this way, it looks like what he's going to do.
I really don't like to try to snipe something by taking it out first. I don't think you want to activate the Death Rattles. It effectively gives the minions 2 attacks in 1 turn, so...
That's true.
Well, he could go fishing with Loot Hoarder, but I think it's going to be Bloodlust time.
Well, you can do both.
Yeah, well, he has to commit to using 5 mana on the Bloodlust first.
It's an expensive bow, but...
But yeah, I mean, he's not getting... Like, Bloodlust is getting incredibly, worse and worse as this game progresses, as he loses board control. I think this might be one of his last turns to get a good Bloodlust anyway, so I don't think he feels bad about Bloodlusting first.
Right, he's actually fighting back pretty well on board, considering he's got some more sticky minions following it up.
Well, the Knife Juggler threat is finally gone. It has been a sniper throughout the course of the tournament for Chakki.
Yeah, and this is a great turn for D2. He managed to basically almost clear out the entire board and take a pretty hard board control here. Now we'll have to see just how many, which cards can be life tapped into.
Man.
That's not incredibly important, but it's okay to have. He can get a free Soulfire. There's not a really good target. I mean, he's definitely going to play his 2 minions here. I'd expect him to either take out the 2-1 or the Healing Totem with his Argus.
I feel like the 2-1 is a bigger threat. There's not many targets, but Healing Totem can be effective anyways.
Oh, wow, he decides to Soulfire the 2-1.
Oh, wow. That's weird, but yeah, he's going really aggressive. It always feels good to kind of get a free attack on a totem, though.
Guess he got Lightning Storm. I mean, he's not really playing much of his hand anyways. It is annoying that he can't play everything.
It actually doesn't leave him with a very good play this turn. Even if there was no Lothab, even just casting Lightning Storm, even if he got a Spell Power Totem.
It's still, it's not as reliable as you'd think.
Yeah, the egg is really protecting him from Lightning Storm. You really don't want to proc the Nerubian egg and get the 4/4 out. So I think he's going to decide to Zombie Chow. There's not a lot of trades he can do. I think something that you can really consider doing here is suiciding your Haunted Creeper, just because you want the additional power, and it's 1 power in this form, and it's actually 2 power in the Death Rattle. So I think it's actually better from the suicide on probably the Argus or something.
Interesting. That would be a very creative play.
Well, he decides to go more for the race. Chakki has not drawn a Power Overwhelming yet.
Nope.
When he was mousing over his deck earlier, I think that was one of the cards he was considering. Is this something I can draw soon?
Something with damage and that's really imposing on the board because you know your opponent's holding only one card.
Yeah, I mean, especially Zoo doesn't have a lot of AoE, so Double Creeper isn't the best draw, but
Not really, but at least it's fighting for board. I mean, his opponent's board is pretty weak to creepers.
It'll have to do.
The next draw from the Shaman is actually going to be really huge. He's going to be tempted to kill that zombie Chow,
right?
Just to make sure he doesn't die to anything crazy. It will heal him up a little bit. It does do a more efficient trade, but it is a big risk either way, depending on what he draws soon. Most of the cards left in his deck are things like Doomguard, Power Overwhelming, and he's figuring he's really close to finishing his opponent off. He just needs to find a way to do it.
Is there a possibility your opponent has like a 2-card combination for damage? We know it doesn't.
Oh, the Hex comes out.
Hex. So does he have an opportunity to get board clear here? I don't think so.
I think he's probably going to Hex Litheb and leave the Death Rattles up.
Sure.
It seems hard to clear everything here.
Is there an award for the least or the least incentivizing board for Lightning Storm ever?
He could kill possibly everything and leave just 2 1/1s on his opponent's board, but it would require some good coin flip rolls on the Lightning Storm. Since he did not get the spell power, it is very risky.
I personally hate to be in those situations.
I wonder if DTwo has another Bloodlust in his deck. I don't think so, but it's possible.
It is possible. We've seen some players do that. I believe DTwo from France in last week's qualifier was running double Bloodlust, for better or for worse.
Okay, so it looks like there is going to be a Lightning Storm this turn. If the Death Rattles are being taken out before, there's definitely going to be a Lightning Storm here.
Yep, and whether it hits 3 on the Defender of Argus will be a pretty big deal here. At this point, every resource matters.
Well, the problem is the 4/4 is not going to die for sure, so...
The 4/4 is alive, but he's got that Taunt Totem in the way, and he's going to keep rolling totems.
Well, Undertaker, we're talking about its sharp drop-off the later the game goes.
There's the Power Overwhelming. It's kind of a turn late.
That is tantalizing.
Chakki definitely needs his Doomguard. I don't think he's drawn any yet this game.
Well, there's a Fire Elemental, so the 4/4 will die. And that actually means that he can clear out both of his opponent's minions, and Doomguard will no longer be good enough.
Oh, and he gets another Taunt Totem.
Another Taunt Totem.
These are big rolls for D2. Hesitating, just kind of calculating.
D2 is really thinking about, his own lethal potentials because he's very close as well.
Sure.
I definitely think that there's not a very big reason to go for face here. Clearing out your minions, you can probably still get lethal next turn. Warlock is low, and Warlock probably will have to tap regardless of whether it's going to kill him, just because you won't win if you don't tap, so...
Yeah, attacking with the Hunter Creeper does provide you the power to lethal your opponent even if he doesn't tap. So he thought about it for a second, and now he has 11 damage instead of the 9 that he would have if he sacrificed the Spectral Spider.
Oh, and the Doomguard is there, but...
Wow!
It's not good enough. He can't use his Power Overwhelming.
He's going to Doomguard and Life Tap into Soulfire, but even that...
That's not good enough.
No.
All right. Game 3 is in the books, and D2 fist pumps in celebration, and Shaman takes out Zoo, a critical win, as we are now going into Game 4 with a lead for the DKMR player.
Yeah, that was a really important match. A lot of, one of the things about this this format in the tournament format, where you can, you have a big lineup pool and you can pick what you want against your opponent's deck when you lose. It means that as the match goes on, you have less chance.
Even if he doesn't, he drops here as D2 is currently up 2-1. We jump straight into the board, and right off the bat, we see a pretty poor hand for Chakki. He wants to get a better start than that, compared to his opponent who has double 1-drop with Undertaker, and of course, Doomhammer is very important to control that board.
That's pretty much the best hand you can hope for. Doomhammer is actually pretty good in this matchup for another reason, because it's not for really the burn at this point. It's for, you can take out so many totems. I can actually see this being a matchup where you can actually use both Doomhammers. After a long game.
I think so.
But D2 has an amazing opening. 2 2/3s on turn 1. It's almost unstoppable.
Well, hey.
For this.
It's a Doomhammer party. I think Chakki will at least be happy to see that. His hand is much slower, though, compared to his opponent.
Yeah, Lightning Storm.
Lightning
That's
Storm.
a really big card to draw. You know, I mean, it's not going to be immediately useful, but it's just having access to it in the long run helps your win rate a lot in this matchup. This opening is really strong. It's going to be hard for Chakki to really take board control against, you know, this opening. It's just you can stomp every totem. Your creatures, you know, are kind of bigger. They're going to probably win the creature battle as well. So.
Well, he finds an Earth Shock.
Okay.
It's not the type of answer he perfectly wanted, but he does get to play potentially a Blood Mage as well, and maybe that'll help him find something like his Lightning Storm. He would like to have played something like a Harvest Golem this turn, but he would have needed a Rock Fighter last turn to take care of the Undertaker. Instead, he does not have it. At least the Undertaker dies entirely because of the spell power, so it isn't even ready to take out anything like the Blood Mage.
Yeah, another thing is I think Harvest Golem is one of the best cards in this matchup. 2/3 is perfect for killing totems, and it's really hard for another player to kill with spells, so it's really important to develop your Harvest Golems as early as possible here.
Part of the good news for Chakki is that even though he's sitting at 26 life, that Zombie Chow will die eventually, and so it really is more of a board control fight, like you were saying. It's a little bit less of a race at this point. It really is jockeying for board position. Even though his opponent had that really great start, he's still in it. Also could find a Lightning Storm of his own. And he decides not to play the Harvest Golem and use the Rock Biter. So he's going to hold on to the Rock Biter. He doesn't take it out right now, which is actually a little bit surprising. He leaves a little bit more damage in play on his opponent's board, and that Defender of Argus looks like it could punish that.
It looks like it will punish that. It is juicy. I mean,
anytime you can Argus 2 targets on turn 4, you feel so good about it. Argus is probably one of the stronger turn 4s you can make. Targets, and the other 4 drops would have to be more situational to be better or something like a keeper.
Is he going for Lightning Storm?
Oh, wow. Interesting. So he's willing to use his Lightning Storm now. And even though this will give Chakki a chance to start using the Doomhammer to catch back up. And if he does use the Doomhammer, it will make that Argus worse.
Yeah, and they're both overloading this turn. I guess one of the reasons why D2 decided Lightning Storm is because he would overload on 5. I guess he doesn't want to play the hammer on 5, and that means that he can not overload on 5 and play the Karn on turn 6. But, I mean, I guess he did get a lot of value from Lightning Storm. I feel like he probably could have waited a little bit later because you can take out the Haunted Creepers and do that later, and Shaman's always going to develop more and more of these tiny sticky minions where you can get more value from it. So,
and it looks like Chakki is going to choose to play the Doomhammer, and he just takes out 2 of the minions. He leaves just the damaged Golem back up, so that's something that can't get healed. It also puts Chakki back at 27, which of course he's probably pretty grateful for.
That's good because he has double Doomhammer, and most likely he'll have to attack things that do a little bit of damage every single time. So healing up to a comfortable range of health is absolutely great in his book. And you're talking about how it seemed like he didn't want to be overloaded, D2 that is, for turn 6, but now he will be anyways, and next turn he won't be able to play Cairn or Doomhammer, assuming this gets cleared.
This matchup is kind of going how kind of we expected. I mean, Doomhammer, again, isn't doing any damage to face. Shaman for Shaman, like one of Shaman's strengths or its identity is just how little damage it takes. Shaman's a class without any healing, but it doesn't actually take that much damage either. Your hero power, like just the class cards, forces them to always kill your totems unless they have a very good reason not to. You know, with Flame Tongue Totem and Bloodlust or all these cards that can snowball minions. So no one's really getting much damage in, and this game is turning into like a very grindy game for board control. So
it is quite a bit of a grind fest, and Chakki decided to overload this turn. He could have played the Harvest Golem and been able to play the Fire Elemental next turn. But there's also a Cairn for D2 waiting in the wings, so okay, and he just sacrifices his damage golem. He wants to make sure that that dies hopefully as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and since there's so many charges on this Doom, there's so many charges on Doomhammer, so
he is going to have to find a Hex pretty soon for something like that Cairn. And the Azure Drake in what is a very grindy matchup, as you mentioned, sometimes things like Lightning Storm help break that in your favor, but another card that does it is Azure Drake. It's a large minion that is sometimes very difficult to deal with, and it also draws you into a different card. He decides not to play it. He's going to just make the totem. He does have Flame Tongue Totem in hand, so that may be playing into that decision.
Sure.
And he may even just take out this Harvest Golem completely, so he wants to make sure that he keeps everything off of his opponent's board as much as possible.
Yeah, I like Chakki's play. Like you said, this matchup is really grindy, and the Azure Drake can really grind up this matchup, but it's not a card where you really have to play immediately, because eventually as people are getting low in cards, you can play it any time at the end.
Yeah.
And I do feel like probably the Harvest Golem plus the Hero Power is a stronger play as far as if you're not counting the extra card in your hand.
Yeah.
Especially with the Flame Tongue Totem. So.
Well, there's another opportunity for Rockbiter or another opportunity for Fire Elemental. Either way, he gets to kind of have his pick of the litter here.
Yeah, Fire Elemental is really powerful in this department because now you're putting out a really strong minion. Your board is starting to look really good, and you're denying everything that comes out from your opponent while protecting Flame Tongue. I think this is a really good turn here for Chakki again.
I think for sure it's going to be a Fire Elemental. It just lines up so well. You Fire Elemental, take out both halves of the Sludge Belcher and leave the totem up. Again, I think that's definitely a misplacement, but he might be playing around Big Game Hunter, so it might not be a misplay. It is. He does lose the 2 damage on it though. I definitely think he should save the Rockbiter weapon for later. He can get a lot of bursts from it, or even just kill 2 big minions instead of using it right now. It's interesting. So he can actually take out the Karn with a Rockbiter.
Yeah, right.
If he wanted to.
Yeah.
It's basically just a glorified Stoneforged axe at this point.
He only has 1 charge left on his weapon, so he can't take out the whole thing.
Okay.
But it was close, though.
Wait, no, he can take out Cairn, just not Bane.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
That's what
Technically, I was
Strapco
right.
meant.
Technically.
Yeah, exactly. Strapco's always right. All right, see what this Azure Drake draws. If he picks up Hex, that would be absolutely devastating for D2.
Oh, it's a Feral Spirit instead. That actually could work out. If he decides to play the Feral Spirit, the only thing that would really worry him would be something like an opposing Lightning Storm #2.
Exactly. This is setting up for a really good race for Chakki. Karn is just too sticky.
What a board. That is incredible. He needs Lightning Storm #2 to get back.
Well, he's got Doomhammer and Rockbiter of his own. His opponent is at 17, but there's taunts in the way now. He can make some of his own if he wants to, but that would mean not playing the Doomhammer this turn.
Yeah, this is so brutal because even if you make a totem and taunt everything up, your opponent's going to get such efficient trades, even against this sticky Karn minion, which is usually like the best trading minion in the game. It's just it can pretty much trade effectively against anything as long as you have enough time and it doesn't get silenced or something like that. But this Rockbiter with a full board, with a full board, Flame Tongue is just too efficient. I feel like the Flame Tongue totem will allow just like really efficient trades everywhere here.
Well, Cairn is a big taunt in the way, but even that damaged golem is going to be able to kill the taunted half of Cairn very easily. It will put his Fire Elemental up to 8, which he avoided doing before, but at this point it might not be such a big problem. Oh, and Urshock is drawn. Unfortunately, he only has 1 charge on his Doomhammer, otherwise I think this would be lethal.
4.
Even still, it's very close.
6, 8. He's counting up 15, 20. He's got 20 damage.
Are you counting the damage from
the sliding
2 from the sliding over?
I think that might be it.
14 plus 5.
Yeah, looks like
3?
it is. Chakki's got it. Forgot about the Flame Tongue Totem sliding in. And we have ourselves a Game 5 once more as Chakki has the exact lethal he needs. Using the Flame Tongue Totem to kill. I like it.
It is weird that DTwo ended the game with a Doomhammer. I guess he never really had a good time to play it, but you usually want to use your health as a resource and play it as early as possible. Doomhammer is an incredibly slow weapon. It's 8 charges. I guess you can use it in 4 turns, but it kind of looks bad for him to die with the Doomhammer and not have used it to take out a lot of these minions earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
It may be possible for him to have done something like continue to fight.
So you do see Big Game Hunter in this handlock.
It is one situational card. I mean, handlocks have that especially effective in the mirror. And AoE is also an important card to have against Shaman, whether it's Hellfire or Shadow Flames. You want to have that available to you when things get too loaded on the board with a lot of those small creatures like Feral Spirits and such.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Hellfire is the more important one to have early, and Shadow Flame is the more important one later on. Shadow Flame pairs so well with Jiraxis, you can Shadow Flame for 6 damage. Early on, the life doesn't matter as much for your Hellfire, and you're very unlikely to have board control from the start because your tapping a lot. So Hellfire is more like a one-way thing, where Shadow Flame late game, as you build up your own minions, you know, you're going to have minions yourself to Shadow Flame, and also you won't Hellfire your other minions. So.
Do you like tossing out the Sun Fury Protected or start getting ahead of the curve of totems?
Definitely. I definitely think you should play Sun Fury here. It's just too good at stopping Shaman's totem development, and also just tap and making a big minion on 4 isn't as good for Shaman because they have so much answers that just deal with it instantly. So.
Now, how about the Iron Beak Owl to shut down the 1-2? Do you think that's too ambitious?
I'm not sure. This is definitely a rope turn for me.
It is, especially now that you've actually drawn the Mountain Giant, the potential of the Mountain Giant
Don't
showing
you
up your
wanna tap
hand.
now?
It's in your face. It's staring right at you, saying if you play Iron Beak Owl to make sure you stay ahead, you aren't life tapping to this Giant anytime soon.
Here we go.
He goes for it anyways. He's now basically got the early board.
That's important. You know, Shaman does rely upon their early board for cards like the Flame Tongue Totem or even Defender of Argus to make it out of range of AoE. And all of a sudden, it's getting bullied.
Yeah, I do feel like Shaman's hardest games are when Handlock can develop an early lead.
Wow.
Well, he might just go for the Argus, actually. I mean, it's so weird with 2 Giants, but Argus just looks so good here at 2 mid.
It's like a really slow zoo deck in a way, right? It's like turn 2, turn 3, Defender. It's like, what?
A really good player once told me that anytime you can play a Defender of Argus on turn 4 with 2 targets is one of the most powerful things you can do in the game.
That
And
guy sounds really smart.
always feel really good about it. I wouldn't be surprised if D2 agrees in this circumstance. If he does start tapping for those Giants, it also would be okay. But I definitely also agree that even here, Defender of Argus is pretty enticing, even with those Mountain Giants staring at you. And he does go for it. He decides, all right, it's time to smash in.
This protects his Owl from being traded from the Haunted Creeper as well, so...
He's
And
committed
you're not cured.
so many cards to the board without life tapping, though, that at this point, if something were to happen like a Lightning Storm, it could almost completely blow out the game, and the Warlock would basically have to start from scratch.
Yeah, but the good thing for him is Lightning Storm does overload the Shaman, so even if there is a Lightning Storm, there's not going to be a lot of mains immediately to, you know, kill D2. So he'll probably still have a couple turns life tap and hopefully get into enough cards where he can play some of the Giants out.
Right. This is a really interesting turn here, and it looks like he's going to go for a Defender of Argus of his own. He may even coin out that Earthshock. No, he just decides to trade instead. So he's just going to go ahead and fight for the board more naturally. He had the opportunity to use the Earthshock, but he may be worried about the possibility of something like a Twilight Drake coming sometime soon and feeling bad about losing the Earthshock, because I guess he does have another one, but he doesn't have a Hex or anything like that. So
yeah, Earthshock's by far the best, one of the best cards in this matchup. There's so many good targets. Even in the late game where they don't draw Twilight Drake, you can still use it to burst with, you know, Rock Biters and Doomhammers and stuff. So
D2 thinking about whether he keeps the Ancient Watcher in hand so he's a turn 6 Giant play, or he drops the Ancient Watcher, has options at his disposal next turn for whether it's Shadow Flame or whatever he draws, but I think keeping it in hand is a much stronger option.
yeah, definitely. Even though it does enable Shadow Flame, if he really wants to, he can still play it on the same turn on 6, and doing this allows him to play the Giant next turn, which is very big.
He does play Jiraxis, by the way, which is going to be extremely influential in the late stages of the game if it gets to that point.
well, he goes for the Azure Drake. He gets that Lightning Storm. It would have been nice if he had it earlier. He's still okay just holding it on into his hand, but what that means is now that the Mountain Giant is going to come out, and he can even Shadow or Soulfire the 4/4 if he wants to, and he does. So Jiraxis goes away.
That stinks.
That is a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, it looks bad, but it might not be the best card in this matchup, just because Shaman has so much burst.
But that Giant is a big deal.
Yeah.
What do you do to it?
I actually feel like he probably doesn't even need Jiraxis. That Giant is probably not going to die this turn. Actually, I mean, I'm not sure.
He can kill it.
He can kill it, but it's so expensive. I guess Chakki has to decide to probably kill it. Looking back at it, you can't really leave up a Giant; it'll kill you too quickly. So,
right.
I mean, it's going to be expensive, and it's definitely something he needs to think about what the best way of killing it is.
Ooh.
I don't feel like he can develop the Fire Elemental and kill it. Like, it's impossible. So he'll probably just be nuking it with spells. I could just see him taking out the 2/3 or 2/2 with the Fire Elemental.
He did have the opportunity to coin out Fire Elemental last turn. He would have killed the 2/2 and been able to attack the 3/1. It would have just been his Fire Elemental now against the Mountain Giant. it would have made it easier to trade. The Soulfire was sort of activated in a way by having that Azure Drake be in opposition to it.
Unfortunately, it doesn't get the right totem. I feel like Chakki really wanted a Spell Power totem here so they can double Lightning Bolt instead of using the
Lava Burst. Right.
This is looking very good for D2.
It really is. He doesn't have any super crazy amazing plays this turn, but he's not under any significant threat. And what he does have is the promise of a lot of resources off of his life tab and very powerful cards already in hand.
Yeah, it's interesting how it works where because nothing's been developed on the Shaman side, he has a plenty amount of resources to life tab. As a result, he can draw cards. Where later stages in the game, you're kind of mindful of what happens because Doomhammer is threatening you, or in this weird scenario, Lava
I do
Burst.
feel like D2 made a mistake. I don't feel like he I think if he didn't play the Watcher, he could have tapped and played Giant next turn. And because there's not any immediate use for this Ancient Watcher other than to watch the board, he probably shouldn't have played it.
Watch the board.
Well, Ancient Watcher, if it's not activated, it just watches the board.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I guess he can still life tap. Never mind.
Yeah.
He can still life tap in Giant, I think.
There you go.
All right, so it works out.
Yeah, it works out. The problem with Chakki's hand is his whole hand is situational, like removal and burst. And
Right. He's still
it's
waiting
not
for like
even
an Azure
close.
Drake.
Exactly. He needs to like develop something like creatures and stuff. So.
Okay, Flame Tongue Totem. Yeah, if he had again a Spell Power Totem, things could line up very nicely.
I think Chakki's definitely counting some lethal opportunities, even though he's very far away. You know, he's actually not that far if he can even get one attack in from the Fire Elemental. He just has so much burst, I think.
It is very unlikely for that Fire Elemental to get an attack in, as we know.
Yeah.
His opponent sitting on Siphon Soul, and of course he has the Giant sitting there as well. All right, well he hits 3 on the Giant. I think that was what he was going for.
I can point out Fire Elemental to kill it.
All right, very strong play by Chakki. He took a little bit of a risk, but one that he felt he needed to make. And he does have it work out in his favor, but his opponent still has tons and tons of gas in the tank, ready to go. He can just Siphon this turn. He can play out minions. There are a lot of options for D2 at this point.
So if you slow play this as hand lock, say he does go for the Siphon and more of a passive turn, is that more fitting to the game plan of what hand lock wants, or do you feel like it should be an opportunity for him to strike back somehow?
Well, I feel like Handlock would prefer to play minions instead and save Siphon for later, but you've already lost your Draxus, so Siphon's one of the most important cards post-Draxus. And also, because you're playing against Shaman specifically, it's very hard to play minions here because Shaman has too many hard removal like Hex and Earthshock, so I do feel like he's very likely going to be playing Siphon Soul here.
It is probably, as far as he knows, the largest minion that his opponent is going to play at any point in the game. There is no better target, and he would prefer not to have it trade into something before he removes it.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely very true. So Chakki can develop a little bit of a board presence here. Totem and the Argus will allow him to get 2 targets from the Argus and develop kind of a strong board.
Well, his opponent does have that Ancient Watcher sitting there, and there is the looming threat of the potential of Shadow Flame. He attacks it anyways. He knows he has to deal damage whenever he can, however he can. But that Shadow Flame is sitting there. That could just be triggered right now. He would be able to Shadow Flame and get a Sludge Belcher up even in the same turn. So a lot of risk here, but it's a bit of a risk versus reward type of thing. But this may be sort of the beginning of the end. This is the handlock gaining control, and it may never let it go.
Yeah, these tempo plays are really good if you can make them as the handlock. Life tap is in this deck. Life tap operates a lot different than Zoo because Zoo your mana curve is so small, so you kind of have to life tap just to stay in the game. But handlock, if you can get a lot of these life taps in the end game and you're drawing into very big minions, you can easily just overwhelm your opponents with the card advantage very easily.
Wow, Chakki has to expend a lot of his resources just to take out. And Sludge Belcher, one of those cards people argued gave handlock a much stronger fighting chance against Shaman because you don't want to hex it, but it's so resilient, and of course it kills everything pretty much that you bring out. And just look at the resource battle. There's so many cards in the handlock, and he's even got some healing so he can stay out of the burst range.
He does. He has a lot going on here. Even the big game hunter, he knows he's not going to need to use it anytime soon. It is just a really powerful minion that he can sort of throw out there. And now he's got a board behind even another Siphon Soul and behind Defender of Argus if his minions were to live.
Yeah, I feel like Chakki doesn't really have any like scenarios or long-term game plans where he feels like he can win. I mean, ultimately he's just kind of stalling out here. I don't feel like there's, you know, I don't feel like he knows exactly a way to win this game. He can Lightning Storm here and clear the board, but you know, if you look at his hand, it's just all these cards just stall out a little bit longer and longer and maybe destroy some minions. But ultimately, Handlock will just grind you out. So.
Well, it's not like Handlock has the sexiest thing going on here either.
Yeah, that's true.
his turn looks very feeble at the moment.
His hand is kind of weird too. But ultimately, a couple more turns and the Molten Giants will start coming out. Even if they come up for 10, it's still 8-8 for 10. And if there's not much, if the game is kind of like going really slow and there's not much going on, you know, 10 mana for 8-8 will allow you to still win the game.
Wow, Chakki has double Rockbiter, but still no signs of Doomhammer. And he's already about 16, 17 cards deep in his deck, so the Doomhammers are nowhere to be seen despite having 2 of them.
Even if he were to play the Flame Tongue here and attack for 4, his opponent would be at 20. Even then, if his opponent were to life tap for whatever reason, that would still only put him at 18, with Chakki having the ability to do 16 if he drew a Doomhammer.
Sure.
Even that is not enough. It's going to be
a
very hard game for him to win at this point.
Yeah. It would require your opponent to do something radical like life tap and Hellfire and then put yourself in range to die.
At this point,
it's very surprising how he didn't even.
Ragnaros makes an appearance, and that can set a very real clock. Although your opponent's been holding some cards for a while. Are you sure he doesn't have Hex there now?
Well, I'm sure you're putting him on Hex at this point, but even if he does Hex it, you might be okay with that. There's not any real downside to playing Ragnaros here, besides that it just might be a very overcosted Totem Slayer.
Oh,
but it actually goes to the face, so
Ragnaros wants to end this one early.
It puts him on a very, very real clock.
Unfortunately, Chakki does not draw his other Hex or one of his Hexes, so Ragnaros is going to be very hard to deal with. I personally think that he's going to ignore the Ragnaros. I don't feel like he can ever win the game if he decides to use all his Rockbiters here on the Ragnaros. He might just develop his Fire Elemental, take out the 3/3, maybe even Flame Tongue, go for the face, make another Totem, and hopefully draws Doomhammer and all ends next turn.
I think that is going to be his only play. It's a very all-in play, but now is literally the time. There is no other way to win this game for him here. So, and I think he knows that.
Thinking of dropping Fire Elemental, snipe the Earthen Farseer, hopefully draw something like Taunt Totem or whatever to stall, and then go for a Flame Tongue Totem push. And then, of course, if your opponent plays like double Ragnaros or whatever, you're in trouble.
There's the Faceless too, so.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, even the Taunt Totem, I don't even think the Totem even matters, because Ragnaros can't even attack, I guess. It's just, I guess it's good against the Silence Ragnaros. This will save him from Silence plus Soulfire.
Well, Silence plus Power Overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
If he didn't do that, that was actually game right there.
But it still might be game then. Can he do that anyways with the Siphon Soul?
Siphon Soul. Oh, you're right.
He can.
He's got Siphon Soul, Silence with the Owl, and Power Overwhelming D2 if he spots his combination. Will be going to the top 8.
Well, not to the BlizzCon yet. His road to BlizzCon will continue.
That's right.
For one of them, it will be alive, but for one of them, it will not. And it is available for him to do right now. It is a guarantee. He has other plays he can make that also are high percentage plays, but 100% is better than 85.
Yes.
So no matter how you slice it, he's thinking it over. He hasn't seen it yet, otherwise he would have pulled the trigger. So
it's a little tricky with so many cards in hand, but he has the damage.
There is a ton of information in front of him. I don't really blame him for missing it if he does. He's been so much trying to figure out how to just not die that he may not be worried, that he might be more worried about that at this point.
And actually, if he doesn't see it, it might not even be 85% because there's 2 Doomhammers in Chakki's deck.
Oh man, it's so tempting to go double Ragnaros.
He's actually
he's gonna taunt up double Rag. So
well, he can still die, I think.
Well, twice to the face. Here we go, double Ragnaros.
Oh,
it's Flame Tongue.
That actually was important.
That's important.
Okay.
There is a Silence, so
and he even drew the Hex, but he doesn't. Of course, he doesn't have the Doomhammer.
Well, hold on. He Hex, and then
now
you can only do 12 damage even if there was no taunt.
He needed the Flame Tongue to stay alive in order for the Hex to be able to push through a lot of damage. So And even if he had it, he still would only be able to do 12 with the hand he has now without having that Doomhammer as well. He needed one more card than he has now.
He's got to kill these Ragnaros, though. Like, it's just way too much of a threat.
Well, he's going to be able to take out one, but he's going to have to play the ignore game one more time.
Really? You don't think he just rock biters one and trades?
You know, maybe you do have to take it out. There is no real way to get through otherwise.
Ooh, okay. But then it's still available to D2 then.
I wonder if he should have Earthshock.
D2 still has his combination. He also has Hellfire. With Hellfire, he sees this for sure, right?
Well, he could power overwhelming his Defender of Argus and then Hellfire. He still can silence his Ragnaros.
There he goes. I think he finally sees the combination. And D2 will be going to the top 8, defeating Chakki, and gets another opportunity to advance to BlizzCon.
Well, I have to admit, I'm a little bit disappointed seeing Chakki go out this way.
Sure.
But he did have a really strong run. He did make it at least this far. Not quite all the way. His road to BlizzCon does end here. But congratulations to D2. Really